listening to the Astral Hour. I'm your host, Astral Meadow. Join me as we take a glimpse into the mysterious. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm joined with my friend Daniel Webb. He is a healer that uses a variety of techniques such as yoga, Reiki, and meditation. He helps people heal and take control of their feelings by finding their mental and emotional balance. That is the key to inner peace and happiness. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Astral. I appreciate it. I'm a big fan of your podcast.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, sure thing.
So, could you share with us a little about yourself and when you realized you were empathic and energy sensitive?
Well, I did some reflection on this. It's interesting you mentioned that. But when I was about 4 years old, I used to, at night, I was afraid because ghosts were coming to see me, and I'd put Scotch tape on the door and the drawers and everything in the room, and I was afraid. And my brother, who was 7 years older than me, used to come and have to sleep in the bed. So I didn't realize it at the time, but entities and things were kind of coming to me, and I remember being real sensitive, and I know what people were feeling when I was younger, or I could almost finish their sentences at time. I knew what they were going to say at times, and then I would struggle in some crowded places, right? Where there'd be high anxiety, or maybe a big football or basketball game, the excitement or anger. And then it took me really till I was an adult to figure out, is this me, or what is this anxiety from me, or whatever's going on, right, in crowded things. And then I more control and balance myself, then it's easier for me to put myself in situations and not get carried away or locked up with everybody's emotion, especially when there's a lot of people with the common consciousness of that emotion in an event. So I learned that kind of an early age of I didn't understand it. And then a lot of people in my life, I didn't realize this at the time really as much, but in Sevier County, there was this called Home Church God. And these were kids that were given up or had it taken that were physically and mentally or sexually abused, and they would be put in the school system. And so I felt the mental, emotional, and physical effects of that, right? Because everything trickles down. A lot of them had, fallen out of school or been there. Let's say they're 10 years old in first grade, and and so stuff rolls. Whatever happened to them, they're put on everyone else. So I was, I felt a little bit of that, and then as I got older, a few dreams would come true. That was sporadic at times, and then a few times some intuition, like something's going to happen in the next few days, or I do that, or I'd sit there and I'd watch before the Kentucky Derby, and I'm go, 13's going to win, right? And I'm like 13 won, right? and then my body basically shut down, and I was overwhelmed with things after puberty and high school, and I got into the alcohol and partying. I was just shutting myself out from everything. And then I got out of school, continued, and then my body basically gave up. And there was like a bolt of lightning went through my head, something like, right? And then I felt really foggy and dazed. And then I became hypersensitive to energies after that. And then I was like, okay, I got to figure this out and self-heal. So I went deep. And then I ran into a few people and certain of the areas and out of the area that helped me. And then I was like, okay, now I'm energy sensitive. How can I wield and understand it more? And the deeper I became and understanding and feeling it, and I went with I learned with the Maoris when they came in town. I love Otto and Bill and the family, and about trapped emotions and experiences get in your body. And then shamanic healing with the sweat lodges and different modalities with that. And then I had a dream about learning about the movement and energy, and it mentioned a name. And then I was out somewhere, and boom, the name for yoga teacher training came. So I started with yoga teacher with this person because Spirit told me to. And I just, the 200 hour, there's basic do sequence and things like this. And I'm like, well, for some reason, I didn't learn. And then later on, when they were doing the 500 hour, it was more focused on similar to some stuff where we talked about today a little bit, right? So it touched on prescriptive and the cause and effects of energies. And I'm like, okay, this was it. And every one of these that I've talked about has something in common, right? So yoga is about the asana part, right? The movement is about really through the spine is loosening, freeing up energy. So energy can flow through your body to get balanced. And the same thing with the Maoris, there's trapped energy. Shamanic healing, the same thing. Everyone, somatic experience is the same thing, right? And I studied a lot of the Kundalini and bought all the books because they have sequences they call kriyas that are prescriptive in certain ways, right? For certain things, a cause and effect, right? And then I practiced on myself. And then I practiced on, okay, let's throw myself out of imbalance on purpose, right? To see what that feels like, what's going on, right? And then I'd be in high anxiety and all this depression and this stuff, and how can I work my way back from being out of imbalance and how to get out of balance. And so the cause and effect and studying people, that's how I came to where I am now. So instead of working in a class of, yoga is kind of a broad topic over here. And there's different they say, well, what kind of yoga you do? Well, yoga is really traditionally, you're moving energy so you're able to meditate and get to consciousness. That's the purpose, okay? So, but when I looked at a class for me, there could be 15, 20 people, and watching everyone needed something a little bit different, I thought. And to me, I wanted to do more focus on one-on-one. And I had a mentor who came to me, I'm not going to mention her name, but they came to me in a dream one time, and then I started to become really good friends with them after that, so going to their house and working with me, and they're really powerful psychic, but way he's teaching me is kind of like through parables, and how he was like directing me to be with people more like, instead of guessing the weight or this, you really want to try the healing from the inner child. And he's like, that's why all those people came to you when you were younger.
Wow.
And when I've noticed too in my adult life, I've drawn to someone or friends, I'm like, they're probably had some issues as a child, like me.
Yeah.
And everyone that I'm drawn to some way or another has that. My best friend, someone I've been, whether really close, male or female, it's, and I've known for 15 years, and one day the top may come up and like, oh my gosh, yeah, this happened. I go, I knew it because
Right.
we're friends. I'm drawn to you, right? So
Exactly.
that's something else. So he was talking about kind of like, that's, working through my house, really the path people come to heal.
Right.
Or try to be the guide. But he also taught me, which is interesting, is you can only be the guide. People have to want to do the things, right? So he's like, you can be someone who takes someone's money every week or two and they feel good and leave and never do anything. Or, you'll exhaust yourself and it's not really in your authentic power, right?
Right.
And he really taught me as a kind of a personal practitioner in a way to, hey, you know what? I ask if I can see, if I understand if they have or hadn't when they come in. I can just tell the way the energy vibe they're kicking off, and even the way they're breathing. And I ask them if they are or not, and some of them are truthful, some aren't. And then I can say, hey, don't come back until you have done this, whatever, 60 days, and we can talk for a tune-up. But until then, don't,
Right.
I'm not taking you on. So, I'll be honest, it was really hard. I used to have a regular 9 to 5 kind of job. I was in management, and it was so hard to be balanced in both worlds, right? I meditate, and energy and intuition, what's coming on, and then I have to go in to calculate numbers, and it's hard being in both worlds. It was like when I left and sold the business a couple of years ago, I had to heal from that. It took me a year from like my own PTSD from walking away from that structured of The shock to my system, right, from before and after. So, but when I prepare and do my own daily practice, is, I like to eat my own cooking, right? Then I feel better, and I'm in more of my power. Then I'm able to help more people and my own pace. So I hope that answered a little
Yeah.
bit. So
Yeah. The part where you're talking about like attracting other people like that had sort of the wounded child archetype, I have found that I do that same thing. And so obviously we both have that, but there's just something like I almost want to call it like alchemy, like when two wounded children get together. Like we're adults now, but when we're like allowed to share our story with someone else and like someone that also experienced it, there's so much healing, like just expressing that and like making a friend, that understands you in that
it's a
way.
it's
Like,
an it's a truly understanding,
yeah,
isn't it? Maybe you can correlate this when two people that might be in different armies have been to war.
yeah,
It's an understanding of, hey, I understand, I get it, I feel it.
right, right. And childhood is so,
Delicate.
yes, yes. And I was studying my Chiron the other day, and the girl, I was watching a video on it, and she was talking about like Chiron in the fifth house. There's like not only what was it hard for me to be a child, but other children were really mean to me. And I didn't have any friends as a child. I have literally is like zero friends from my childhood as an adult. And so I don't know, like I guess I always assumed as a kid it was just always going to be that way. But then like as I grew up, now I'm meeting people that also had that experience. And I'm like, we were the weird ones, but look at us now, like we're making the magic happen.
Exactly.
But it's hard. It's hard to go through that, but how special that we can find each other. Like it's like we're putting out that frequency.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And I think there's quite a few of our friends you both know in common that probably have the wounded child, or adolescence of
and
some
like the
sort.
magical child too. So even though we had these hard childhoods, I have a similar story to you, where like just the dreams and just sort of feeling, and I always thought of it like something was wrong with me. But now I'm like, well, maybe that was like a gift, because I would get overstimulated. It would cause me not to do certain things, that
Hmm.
places I probably shouldn't have been anyways, or maybe I needed more time to do like introverted things, and so it like kind of pushed me into developing this personality that I have, which was kind of like built in isolation, that happened from my childhood, and that energy sensitivity. I don't know. Like I just kind of carried it with me, but now it's like I understand it. It doesn't feel like a curse, but it can as a child, because all your friends are like, they love going to the ball games. They love, they're doing all this stuff that kids
Yeah.
do. And I remember just like not liking any of the stuff that the other kids liked and being like, how am I supposed to make friends with you guys when all you talk about is this stuff?
And I found out looking back, and even today, I'm really good, great one-on-one with
Yes.
relationships and conversation, but going to a party of more than like seven or more, and some things are going on.
I can't focus.
It's a lot bouncing around for me.
Yeah. It's so hard to focus when multiple people are talking over the other, or there's music, or like when we go to concerts and stuff, like my husband will like see a friend and talk, and I cannot do it. Like if I see you at a concert, I will wave and say hi, and I am done. Like I cannot even try to talk over the band. I'm like, this is not why I'm here. So that's like super stimulating for me. But some people like thrive in that. I don't
Oh,
know.
so that is their home.
That's their scene.
That's their home. It's yeah,
So,
yeah,
all
totally.
right. When we were setting up our session, you asked about the elemental energies in my natal chart. Could you explain how the elements affect us and influence our healing?
Oh man, yeah. So coming off of one of the yoga trainings, I started something about Native American elements started coming up in my mind, right? And kind of the Asian, the fire wind, and all that stuff. I go, what's that about, right? He says, and you have that in a lot of Native American and the signs. And so when I was working on myself, checking out my natal chart wheel, and I started seeing all the fire and wind, And then I started analyzing myself where me element wise, wind being like the brain and the prawn, and you can go through like kind of the chakras with that if people want to go deeper in that. But then I found out people were how their energetic makeup was when they're born over the years. Knowing a natal chart, if someone was heavy dominant and could be fire, wind, and no water and earth, they're predisposed to certain imbalances that I found. It's almost been 100% accuracy.
Yeah.
Now, some are really balanced, and then in their chart, like 2, 2, 2, whatever, like that, right? But for the most part, there seems to be like stelliums or here and there. And
Right. One dominant.
right. So the big over thing of that. And then I went, my yoga training is Sri Vidya Tantra background, where the interweaving and everything. Well, and the roots of this really is some in Bon Buddhism. And I was studying some of this, and they have these certain rituals, and they're using the same poses as thousands of years ago as my yoga lineage to change, manipulate the elemental energies in yourself. And then imbalances were taught the same. And I said, somewhere, whoever started it definitely piggybacked, and they've been doing this shamanically, right?
Right.
And so that's where I kind of got into the elements with, and sometimes it's easier to explain, right? So I don't try to use yoga terms with people. I try to talk, okay, the water in your belly, or the fire in your gut, everyone's heard, or earth at the root chakra, right? And air is wind. So when I try to make it in terms where they can grasp.
Right. Because not everyone has the vocabulary.
Right.
So,
Right.
So what's some of the things that you might prescribe to somebody that has predominant air or earth? Like
Sure. Okay. Predominant air, which means a lot of wind, right? So there's a lot of things that contribute to that and make it even more imbalanced, right? Because people like to go to their comfort level when they're imbalanced. Okay. So a lot of caffeine dries someone out, right? Uncooked foods, dry people keep people dry. Those are little things that accentuate, or too much mental stimulation of always have your mind moving and going and watching TV. It gives a buzz in the brain. So if you know something in a nutshell, what that is, too much mind is kind of feeling out of control. First thing you want to do is, I like to always check your breath. How's your breathing? Breathing your stomach and your chest and things like that. A lot of people who are a lot of air dominant are chest breathers. They're not getting enough energy down in their stomach to build a fire to balance and pull down the energy.
Right.
Okay. That's one thing I look at. To draw in and down energies, you usually want to have your exhale after you do a balanced breath, right? You could focus on exhaling twice as long as you're inhaling, long and slow. You can even do it while you're talking. And that helps draw in and down, bring energy down.
Yeah.
And then the basic classes, they call these yin for slow, but what it does is, that's yin and slow because it draws energy in and down the folds, right? So tantric wise, the weave, you want to do a certain breath and folds at the same time to give the double whammy in what you're trying to do with intention.
Right.
So if you're going to, if you're doing flow and folds without certain intentions, and eventually you're going to draw in and down just because of the movements. But you see a lot of people who are jacked up, want to do power yoga, are imbalanced, and they're running on edge or stressed, or they're in their wind a little bit. They probably need to be doing the fold classes, right? Because everyone goes in balance, so they feel more, everybody likes to put on their fat pants, right? And then you have the people who, maybe these earth and water element people dominant. They sit there and they just, they waller in their own stuff, and in the fold classes, where they maybe need to go to something with more back bends, like getting some air going or fire going, right? So That's kind of that in a little nutshell.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of the air, which
Yeah.
and when I was doing the flame meditations that you suggested for me to do, instead of doing 5 minutes, I'd have to set my clock for 8 minutes because it takes me 3 minutes just to get my mind to stop.
To steady.
So, and what I found is that I play music in my head all the time, and I wasn't quite aware of it. Like I do meditate from time to time, but now I'm doing it daily, and I'm very much aware of like I'm always singing in my head,
Yeah.
and so I would have to switch it to doing a mantra. So the first 3 of the 8 minutes was just me doing mantra. Then I could finally sit there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay to grasp it. And what you might do, instead of 8, you do 10.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
You know, checking your breath, and that's okay.
Mhm.
And you don't judge if I was thinking, singing, done. What you try to do is just go back to that object, right?
Yeah.
Because you just don't want to get run away in that song or run away in that. And the more you do that, it's time under pressure, right?
Mhm.
You're not ever going to stop your mind because energy is always moving there, but
Right.
you're not going to be, you'll respond to life instead of reacting to it.
Mhm.
But I also enjoy the reason for mantra. It does a few things. One, it can be an embodiment of what you're saying, right? It's like a prayer. And two, it's almost like, I'm going to say grasp your mind for lack of better words, maybe, because your mind's moving anyways. And so
Right.
you might use that. And when you're focused on that one tension over and over without daydreaming off, right, with intention, then it has the calming effect of a meditation. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, it's hard for me not to daydream. Like it's so hard. Like so I'm looking at I'm like finally turning the song off in my head, staring at the flame and I'm like, "Oh, look, it looks like something." And I'm like, "Stop trying to analyze what the flame looks like right now. Like
Yeah.
just be, you know?" But I wonder if like some of the people that maybe have different element, predominant elements,
Hmm.
maybe they don't struggle like that with me and
Everyone struggles at
everyone
first.
struggles okay
And
with
then
the mind.
everyone says, "Oh, I can't do it."
Yeah.
Right? They want to do something else. But it's like, "Hey, I'm going to run a marathon tomorrow." And you've never done it. Right? You may jog for 2 feet and walk and stop, right? And then might get build up to a mile in a month.
Right.
Right? I mean, because really it's like kind of, hey, you're sedentary and then you're trying to exercise. Well, it's the same thing with your brain. Your brain's been out of control, maybe, right? For lack of better words. And you just do time under pressure, right? And every time even through the day, you check yourself. As you're daydreaming, go back to what you're doing. Daydream
Right.
back, and the more often you do that, that's meditation. That's walking meditation. As soon as you daydream, go what you're doing.
Right.
Focus.
Yeah, I definitely catch myself now. Like when I'm embroidering, sometimes I'm present, but a lot of times I'm literally in a whole nother place or I'm like stuck in some past memory or so I'm like
Yeah.
the meditation, the struggle with the meditation is like kind of something I just deal with in a lot of areas of my life I wasn't aware of until I started trying to meditate on it and then it was so loud that I was like maybe this is a problem like because I can't turn the
But
mind off.
here's why one of the teachers that teaches great. I think he's a great teacher. Really taught me how to meditate correctly. I think, well, I don't know if there's any wrong way or right way, but he's asking about if you have awareness. He always asks this in class, new people, right? And whether you say yes or no, guess what that is? That's awareness.
Right.
So there's no wrong answer. So you're being aware right now. Now you just don't judge yourself, but you like to judge yourself.
I know I'm so mean
And
about
that's
judging
another,
myself.
right? No, not anymore. Now
Right.
you're judging yourself, not judging yourself. It's funny. But right, you get it, right? So now you're aware. And
Right.
now you're aware when you're judging yourself. So, yeah, I'm not judging. I'm going to be pumping myself up.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So now you can turn the script. And one of the side effects that I've seen from meditation is I'm responding to life, not reacting. So my awareness has risen from what we're talking about.
Right.
I remember catching myself. I'm driving somewhere and I walk in with Krispy Kreme, right? I've got Angel Devil on each shoulder, right?
Yeah.
It's just, oh, come on, you've been good. You should go ahead and do it. No one says, hey, man, you know what? You're going to feel bad. You're going to beat yourself up. Well, I did it. I ate it. And then I beat myself up about it. And
Right.
it wasn't about the donut. The awareness was I put myself in that situation
Uh-huh.
to judge myself.
Right.
Right?
Right. You should have even
That
been at the
was the
Krispy Kreme.
awareness. That
Right.
was the awareness. So I went there to beat myself up about it. It
Right.
wasn't just the pleasure of the donut. The pleasure was me being hard on myself. So you end up catching patterns.
Right.
You're all of a sudden you can catch patterns you weren't catching before.
Right.
Life slows down.
Yes. Yeah, I do feel like the meditation has helped me embrace like the stillness and move a little bit slower, even if I feel like I failed the meditation because I thought too many things. The rest of the day, I just feel like I move differently. The mind still might be going crazy, but it's like I'm not anxious about it as much, even though it's still always turning. But I don't
And
know.
it always for everyone is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's like a guru might have mastered that, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna master it in
It's
this
a,
life.
it's that's not even a concern.
Right, that's not the point.
You do it and
Right,
it'll
just
happen right over
allow.
time, and it could be, holy cow, 60 days. You're like, whoa, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, yeah, I felt the energetic effect, it
Right,
could be like, oh my God, I ran the 5K, right? And it felt great. So
right,
don't judge that either, good or bad, doesn't matter. You just continue to do it, right? And all the snow globe in your head will settle down.
right. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
that's cool. That's a
sure.
good way to look at it. Um, what do you think the root cause of suffering is for us?
It seems like there's a lot of angles to this, but in a nutshell, I think the Buddhists seem to have this correct, where you're either grasping for something you don't have or you're pushing it away, right? It could be an emotion or adrenaline bump, or it could be anything you're grasping for, or something you don't want, right? It could
Mm-hmm.
be a negative anything, right? And contentment is a big word and it has a lot of angles to that too, but being broad is, pushing or pulling. You don't want some pushing away. That's the initial suffering, what causes in our mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's some of the suffering of like the when we were just talking about like the judgment of like I am judging myself and therefore I'm suffering, but it's because I'm like setting myself up for that, you know.
Or is there anything? I mean, it could be another way, right? Like you had a feeling at one time
Mm-hmm.
that was great, and you're chasing after that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
could be in the same way. It seemed like it's a good, and you keep chasing that, but it causes you suffering because you're always trying to grasp on to something,
Right.
and that's where, and there's something too. The more you meditate and you get to a certain calm, relaxed, good state,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing you want to do is what? Try to get back to that feeling of state,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that'll cause suffering and that'll break you from not getting that state.
Right.
Okay? I mean, it is. But that's,
I do get like kind of caught up on like the needing to relax or needing the calm and stillness or needing to meditate that um, sometimes it's like I'm frustrated because I'm not getting that time. And I'm like, that's kind of like the what I guess I need to be learning from this, right? Is like to be able to carry that meditation through the day and like to, even when I'm not sitting there, to still maintain that peace, you know? Instead of just like, oh, I need to do this right now. And instead be like, well, I'm here right now and this is a test.
and it's also practicing in the moment, right?
Right.
When you say, oh, I need it, well, right there, it's like, you know what? Okay, what I'm doing right now, I'm going to focus. I'm walking, I'm reaching my right hand out, I'm twisting the doorknob to the right, I'm pulling, I'm
Mm.
walking. You can be
Mm-hmm.
thinking that as you're doing that, right? Because you're in meditation. And all of a sudden, you think of Bobby Joe 3 doors down and the cute dog Christmas decorations. I like
Yeah.
those, by the way, as I drove by someone's house. But yeah, and then that's your self catch daydreaming from what you're doing. Then you go back. And that's living meditation because and the reality of it is that's a human experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is experiencing different things. and then we all just can't live in a cave and
Right.
hide under a bed and everybody leave you alone in the quiet, right?
Right.
So that's why I love to meditate with my eyes open, because we live with our eyes open, and then we learn
Right.
to get back in the moment and be
Yeah.
there. And having our eyes open grounds us with something. Let's say,
Uh-huh.
like, we could sit there and look in each other's eyes. It's a grounding purpose when you're connecting with someone
Right.
at a point. So,
Yeah, I hadn't. Well, I mean, I guess I've done some eye open meditations with Kundalini yoga, but there's always like a hand thing or a breath thing, like I'm counting, or you know what I'm saying? So,
something to put your mind to work.
yes.
Hmm.
So it was, I thought I would be really good at this because I'd done those kind of things, but I'd found that it was a lot harder when I'm just looking at the flame. Like, so, because my mind's like, well, what do I do with all this other energy? It's like I can't not multitask. It's exhausting.
And that's one of the things I love about meditation is that I started meditation. I'm like, damn, my mind was all over the place. I said, that's
Yeah.
where I am. Okay. That's why I'm not
Yeah.
settled everywhere else. And then I'm just like, after the meditation, I'm just like, oh, okay, I do feel calmer and in the moment.
Right.
And when I do my personal practice, I like to do a small meditation before and
Mm-hmm.
then do my practice and then do it afterwards and see, like, okay, that I balance the energies. Is the effect different? The
Mm-hmm.
experience different in the meditation was it was before, and every time it has been.
Right.
So it was a little out of balance. That brought me back to maybe your little flame would draw you in and down, right? And check
Mm-hmm.
yourself, and it's easier afterwards. But
Yes. So if I'm meditating before I was doing the yoga, it was crazy. If I meditated after the yoga, it was a lot easier. It was because it was like when my body was relaxed, like my mind didn't, it was like my mind responded to that. I don't know. I guess there's a mind body connection there,
of
but
course there is,
when
right?
I was holding stress in my body, I was realizing my thoughts were stressed too, So it's like I do both, One doesn't work without the
So
other.
when I was used to teach classes, I would walk around, and the first thing I would see is someone's in a posture and they stop breathing. They're
Mm-hmm.
not breathing. They're not continuing the breath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because especially incorporating any kind of a movement posture for an energetic purpose, and you're not breathing all the way in and out at a even rate, right? That's maybe causing imbalance in itself.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've caught myself like rushing through a yoga video, like doing it for exercise, and I'm like, okay, I need to do this and move on with my day, and my intention is not the best, and I find it a lot harder to do, inhale up, exhale down, and I'm not thinking about it, and so I'm breathing really weird the whole time I'm doing it, and I'm not as balanced by the end of those classes. Like I might feel satisfied, like I did exercise today, check, but it's not
If that
quite.
was your intention for exercise, then hey,
Then
I
that's
hope you
good,
got
yeah.
that's right.
Right,
Exactly.
but I always the thing I seek from yoga is that balanced effect at the end.
The
So I'm always
calmer
like
feeling in your mind.
dissatisfied
Yeah.
when I'm
Okay.
rushing through it,
All
but
right.
I've
That's a
caught
great
it.
observation.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
And
that's
maybe even slow down, right?
mhm.
You can do the sun salutation, right? Namaskar A or B, and in slow, long, deep folds, and
Right.
hold there and breathe for about 10 seconds. Go to the plank for about 10 seconds.
Mhm.
Chaturanga for 10 seconds, right? Up
I like that so
dog
much
for
better.
10 seconds, right? And then, um, downward dog for, I usually 10 breaths, long 10 breaths in between, right? And
Mm,
then I feel myself instead of rushing through. Do, 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 do.
right.
But that's me. But
Yeah, I
you,
do better with the
I
slow.
was going to say,
Like I
right?
want to do the fast. Like in my mind, because I'm all da 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 da. I'm like I
Right.
want to at the end feel like I worked every muscle and and all this. But I actually do a lot better when I'm not focused on that. Like I tried for weeks to do 108 sun salutations,
Yeah.
like they say, and I was so caught up on getting to 108 that I was,
That's okay.
I
And
wasn't as focused. I wasn't like as in alignment, like I would rush and like my feet wouldn't be exactly where they should. And,
what
I'm
did
like,
you hold the longest? Did you hold the Warrior One longest? Because Warrior One works a lot of prawn, and
Yeah.
that's your imbalance, right? Or did you stay in the fold
I
longer?
feel like I probably stayed in the fold longer.
That's good because
Yeah.
you need to draw it in and down,
Right. Okay. Maybe that's why then.
right? And maybe you don't need to add any extra prawn to yourself,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's okay too.
Yeah. I just started telling myself that I would do the amount that I needed to do to feel good and stop trying to get to 108 because like I'm not a professional yoga girl. Like I don't that's not my job, like I'm using this technique to help me, but like I'm not going to be impressing anybody reaching 108
And
and
and the professional ones that are really good,
mhm.
they might just do two postures in 2 minutes and they're balanced,
Right,
or
right.
just work on the breath work,
Right.
pranayama,
Yeah.
right?
So now I don't count my sun salutations. I don't.
Don't worry about
I'm
it.
like I do it until I feel charged. Like that sun energy's in me. I have the what I need, the motivation to get through the day, and then I'm just like graceful about it, you know? So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, that sounds good.
one day, man. I don't know. I
That
do.
sounds good. And
I
add a
just want to
twist.
like
Add a twist to
talk to
that.
somebody that does the 108 and see how they feel
Oh, I'm
afterwards.
telling you, you'll be sore for a week.
Yeah, I
I've
made it
done
to
it.
like 50 one time, and I was like, I can't do it tomorrow because I overdid it today.
I did it once on a solar eclipse, probably about 15 years ago.
Hmm.
I don't know how long it took me to recover. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm with you. It's like, oh my gosh, after about
Right.
50, and like, I got to do it. Then, that was the total. I was
Yeah.
sloppy, no intention. I wasn't in the
That's the thing. I get
moment. And
sloppy, so what's the
and then
point?
you're
Like,
not, and you're just doing it to do it, right? Instead of movement with intention.
right, it almost became like an ego thing to me about chasing the number versus like being present
Why
with
you're
each
doing it to
individual
begin
one.
with.
Yes, yeah. So I'm glad that someone else understands what I'm talking about there. So, because I really did beat myself up a
Or
little
maybe you
bit.
just do, hey, Ram, chant Ram 108 times if you want to get 108.
Right, okay. So bringing that number in a different way. I
Mm-hmm.
like that
Because Ram
idea.
energetically is supposedly being the, build the little fire in the third
Right, which I
chakra.
need
So
that energy with my,
that's why I said that.
yeah, with my imbalance. So I do feel like the techniques that you've taught me have helped me bring presence into every day, and they've almost inspired me to want to do, like, to expand more. But then I'm like not beating myself up because even on the bad days, I've done the basics, and so I'm still like I'm satisfied. But then if I do more, then I'm just like, well, that was nice. It's
Sometimes, right. Yeah. I mean, you can. You can't check in on your breath or meditate. Hey, if you feel like 40, go 40.
right, right.
Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good.
Yes. Um, I guess we've kind of talked about this, but could you expand upon how the mind influences us in regards to our own healing?
Oh, man. Well, energy follows thought.
Mm-hmm.
We can think our way into depression and problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I won't say think, but your mind can, what you think in your mind can put you in a hole
Mm-hmm.
and also bring you out of a hole
Okay.
in a perspective, right? So energy always follows thought, especially with intention, right? So, and the four agreements, right? Be impeccable with your word, whether you're beating yourself up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or what you put out in the world. Because once you put out there, it never stops and comes around.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just focus on how we're influenced by our mind. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
every action we do on our mind affects how we feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like food for the soul. You got to be careful with who you're around, what you're ingesting in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Just same with food, right? We're taking it in our energetic body,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're letting it sit in there and we're germinate, especially someone's heavy air dominant where they may start obsessing over thought, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's very important. And let's look at the importance of influencers and why they're used now, right? It's the branders now know that the number one marketing tool and sales tool is influencing people
Mm-hmm.
with other people. And then you get a conscious effect with most people after it's like adds on to that thought, right? And that is all aspects of our life. So when we get on Amazon, if you buy something, I mean, you're looking at what influences your purchase.
The reviews.
The reviews, right? And being in the car business, I found out that it would take like 20 or 30 good views to make up for one bad view. Right. And what do people automatically go to? Oh, there's 4 stars. Well, who put that bad review? Why?
Right.
We all go there. Mm-hmm. Right? You didn't read the 800 other great views, right?
Right.
Okay, everyone's kind of the same thing, but what was wrong?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's very important to what we can sit back from. It has a lot of influence over how we move through the world and our emotional mental being.
Right.
Huge. Let's just go back even, let's say you're in middle school or even today, and someone mentions about, I'm just going to use Johnny as a name expression. Someone goes, oh, Johnny's like this, right? Mm-hmm. And then she tells, because she's pissed because maybe Johnny made fun of her. Mm-hmm. And she runs down Johnny to 2 or 3 other of her best friends. Mm-hmm. And then they turn around and repeat that. Then they repeat that, and then repeat that, and then repeat that. Well, Johnny's branded as the asshole.
Right.
May not even be true. Mm-hmm. Right? And that happens so much in running people now, and the bullies of the kids or the human thing or anything in business, or it is really awful. But if you really probably look, no one has any idea about that person. They're just going on what everyone else said.
Right.
And they defend their ideas because they think it's theirs.
Right.
Right? And it could be from friend groups. It could be politics. Mm-hmm. Doesn't,
Yeah, I've noticed the hive mind influencing people a lot in the past couple of years. Like, it's so obvious now that, like, these people that didn't have any interest in some of these things that I kind of had interest in for a long time. I love science and health, and so it's stuff that I've been into, and I've had friends that just didn't care at all about it. Anytime I talk about it, they kind of roll their eyes. But suddenly, this past couple years, they are like really good with science. Like, it's like, wow, when did you start getting into it? But if they're not, they're just repeating what they've been told, and they all say the same thing. It's like this, it is a hive thing. Like, they say the same words, like they're using the same sentences, and they repeat them like a mantra. And I'm like, but did you read any of the other articles, or are you just repeating what you heard on TV? Or, you know what I mean? But it is
100%. And it's in all aspects in that,
yeah.
Right. It's good.
I don't know if it's like the Aquarius placements or what, but I don't fall into the hive mind thing. I have always been a loner, and most of the stuff that I've been into, no one has ever cared about. I have plenty of books that I've read that I have never talked to anyone about. It's just between me and myself, and so I don't really fall for that. And so when other people start doing it, I'm like, I can see it more because it's just so obvious.
Right. And what could be the root, right? Are they trying to fit in, and that's the only thing, buzzword to talk? They're feeling insecure, they're trying to get approval from you, or, why do people do what they do at times, right? There's some friends out there that we know these people that for some way they're shouting for help or attention or something from external.
Right.
They're trying to get that they can't get internally.
Right. Or they just want to be accepted into the group.
I can see that.
I feel like being the black sheep, I just don't care about that at all. So, like, if something goes against my core beliefs, or if I just intuitively feel like it's off, I don't care if 99% of the people around me are believing that or into it. I will not do it. I don't know. I'm just like my own. I've always been, I guess, a trailblazer, and I've always had to form my own path. And I don't know, some of the mind games don't work on me,
It's interesting you bring this up a little bit, but for the most part, I'm just like you in that way. Mm-hmm. Well, I've always been an outsider. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of times I've wanted to be accepted, and someone said, don't you understand me? I'm really nice, sensitive, and I've even tried to break in groups, wouldn't let me in the group. you know, through those couple things. And it's hurtful, like to me,
Yeah.
whatever. And I go, why do I need to be accepted? What am I missing in myself, right? When I sit down to think about it. But it'd be tough to want to need that external approval that you're not getting from yourself, right? You need that group mentality. And there's a lot of people out there energetically for they're stuck in a bad way, right? If every 2 days someone doesn't give them that
Right.
external validation of something because they're not giving it to themselves. But
Right. But it's just a different personality type.
it is, it is. And,
I just,
and I found that when people are different from me, they don't understand me. And I'm not understanding where they're coming from because, right?
right.
I'm the same on a lot of issues.
Right. A
So,
totally different
yeah,
concern for in the day to day
yeah.
than some of the people around me. I'm like, oh, is that what you're caught up on today? Like,
Yeah,
so I don't
yeah.
know. I'm like always thinking about like time travel and space and like our origins and stuff. But I'm not caught up on what CNN's saying today.
No, I'm not. Yeah, right. It's all an advertisement somewhere. It seems like I just
Exactly.
can't watch regular
Well, that to
like
me would
that
just
anymore. What they call
almost,
news, I'm like, come on,
yeah,
dude.
all
It's
TV though. Like, unless I specifically go seek out a show or a movie,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it comes up in my own mind and I'm like, I want to watch that. Like, but when I just turn on the TV, I'm just like repulsed by it. Like I really only enjoy what I enjoy and that's it. The rest of it is just gibberish. But that's probably
And
not great,
no,
right?
but you know what? At least we have nowadays choice
Yes,
instead of the 3 or 4 channels, or and that's
right.
just what you had on the small cable. Now, I mean, you can look up any topic you want to on YouTube or
Yes,
Facebook, or I mean, you can
specific.
actually go. It doesn't matter. Any topic you can think of or crazy, they got it.
Yeah, they have it.
You can
There's
go
like
any
people
rabbit
that
hole
are
you
into,
want to.
and I love that. And it almost allow instead of like watching TV, I feel like the media I consume is intuitive. So like I have a thought, and that is why I'm watching the video. It's not because I was bored and I'm just hitting the channel turner. I actually chose the channel myself. I created the channel in my mind, and then I'm like expanding on it. So it's almost like I have control over that now. Where like when I was a kid, it's just that mindless
You just had
surfing.
to take. Well, when I was a kid, I had to watch Lawrence Welk before I got to Hee Haw, and I was like, I didn't have a choice.
Right, right. I had my little VHS collection. I've never loved television because commercials really give me anxiety. I don't
They
like
shout
people.
at us half the time, right?
Yeah,
Or
there's
how, and I've always wanted to put shampoo in the hair and laugh too, but the bounce thing, I just can't. For some reason, it's not that
it's
funny to
just
me.
not
Is
working.
that it's not working? What am I? If I get the wrong shampoo, or is it me?
Right, it's always, but it's like even as a kid, I could see that they were trying to manipulate me with the commercials, where they're just laughing in their salad, and I don't know, it's just like, what are they trying to get from me? Maybe I just don't trust people. So, like, I never did
Maybe.
trust these commercials. I'm like, what?
If I need something, I'll get it, right?
Exactly,
And
exactly.
we're living a good time for this. In a way, it can take over your time or too much, just mindless crap, right?
Uh
And I can
huh.
see that. But
Mm
in a way, this is the most golden age of, you know what, there's people making a living out of talking about certain topics, right?
hmm.
And people
Right.
want to learn. I mean, I've seen people with millions of viewers, and they're just being authentic to themselves and having conversation with people, and
Mm
people
hmm.
getting what they need out of it. And this is, I mean, we couldn't have done this 15 years ago.
Right. Right. No one would have been able to find it, or no one.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like the search engines and stuff like that have worked in our favor. So,
I think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like that aspect of the Age of Aquarius. And the technology is that it's helped me find people that are similar to me, which I didn't realize even existed because we are, like a smaller percentage in the population. So now I have people like me, but I also have media that's similar to what I'm into, and like I can find the book I want, like because you can't just go to the library and
Hmm.
find some occult literature at the Oak Ridge Library.
So you're a learner,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I
Mhm.
can just deep dive in whatever topic that, I mean, just
Right.
dive beat it to death, and then
Right.
I go on to the next.
Exactly. And that's my happiness.
Me too.
That's
Me too.
so I don't know. Sometimes I want to be a little different. Like I want to just like go enjoy a pizza party, but I'm like I just don't. I don't. The mundane, that's mundane to me. Where other people thrive in those like extroverted settings. Like I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, I'm gonna go home and put my pajamas on. I'm gonna get my book out, get my notebook ready, you know. So it's just that difference in personalities.
And
But
you
it's
can
so
do
cool
that.
to find other people that understand that
That
about me.
understand it and then
You know, my friends don't
not.
even expect me to do that extroverted stuff
That's a
anymore.
good friend,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, hey, yeah,
Like they might invite me, but they're like, "But it's okay if you don't if you want to stay home." I'm like, "Thank you,"
you
because I
already get anxiety thinking, do I have to go? Oh my
right.
gosh, who's going to be there? Oh my gosh, too many people. Do I got to bring something? Or
Yes.
what's the environment going to be like? Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Now I just have these like really great relationships with people, and it's like one on one, or we have small dinners, and we really get to like the root of things, and we talk about our feeling. You know, it's like it's beautiful, and
It's more right. It's a deep,
yeah.
deep. I
It's
like
deep.
being
It's not this
deep.
surface level like
How's the
Johnny won his
weather?
soccer game.
Oh my
How's the
gosh.
weather? Oh.
Yeah. Or where are you going to on vacation, or where have you been? Right. So
Right. I'm
yeah,
like,
I
have you
agree.
astral traveled recently?
Right. How was
Did
your
you?
last travel? Right.
When people ask me about
I don't think they
vacations,
could handle that
I want
from
to
us,
start
but
talking about my
I should.
vacations.
Yeah.
Like make them have to listen to me a little bit.
You should.
The
Give them the
never.
Astral hour.
Exactly, exactly. Some people really hate that about me. They're like, she
Oh
has to go
no,
far out.
no.
She can't just talk about
And I
these.
want everyone on this who listen to this podcast to know that we're both have little headphones on and we're talking these microphones. And I was telling Astral beforehand, I was like, you know what? I could just sit around and just put headphones, just have a conversation whether we're recording or not.
Right,
I just like it draws me into the conversation a little more, puts me in that
right.
space.
I feel like the headphones. I guess they seem like I don't know, like maybe you don't need the headphones, but it really helps me hear and focus on the person. I'm not hearing my child downstairs screaming. I'm like, I'm present. I can hear
It
you.
does me too. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. It's really cool.
And it's almost like putting on the uniform, like, here we go, right? You put on
Right.
your helmet, you're going to the football game, like, okay,
Yeah.
here's a switch.
Sometimes I think of it like the Matrix when they're like laying down, they're plugging in. I'm like, here we go. We're about to about to go into the Matrix, but it's like we're bringing our energy into the Matrix. When we're using the
Right.
technology, but we're like when Neo and them are going into the Matrix, they're bringing that energy with them into it, and they're shifting and doing things while they're there, right? So
Yeah.
tuning in and plugging in might be a little matrixy, but it's just what you use that technology for. It doesn't always have to be this corrupt technology, but you can use it for light. You can do good while you're in the
Let's
matrix.
circle around. I'm wanting to ask you the same question you asked me.
Okay.
I'm curious about that. So about how you think the mind has created some realities in your life, good or bad. How does it affected you?
I've been kind of had points in my life where I've been really consumed by the mind and like I guess specifically like a victim mentality. And because I had the rough childhood, was
Mm-hmm.
really people were mean to me, whatever. Is in a kind of an abusive relationship. And as I started doing healing techniques and like reflecting back on like how did I get into those, and it's really was because mentally I was so identified with the victim, mentality, and I just thought suffering all the oh well of course I would suffer, I'm just predestined for that, but a lot of that's like I had a very depressed, negative parent. And like that's all my parent talked about. I don't want to say which one, but
And the
it
environment, then you took that on.
yes. And I
Okay.
started repeating those mantras of
Sure.
like not having enough, and I really thought I would just be poor forever, and I just almost got like comfortable in survival mode, and so like my mind was there. But as I started doing Kundalini yoga, changed my whole life. Okay, like the first Kundalini yoga class I ever did, I broke up with my ex like that day. I went home and I was like, I'm done. And so, like, as I started learning these ways to sort of get out of the mind a little bit, I started realizing how much it was controlling me. And it was just because I had these beliefs, um, and I let them consume me. But then I started like reading Law of Attraction and stuff like that. And even though it might be bullcrap, I don't care. But the idea behind it of switching the thought to something positive instead of just focusing on the negative, it really changed my whole life. I'm not a millionaire. I didn't attract all the money, but I'm not in survival mode anymore.
I don't think that's in your chart, but that's okay. You have other richness. No, it is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So yeah, I would say the mind definitely was everything. Like once I was out of the victim mentality and started thinking abundantly and saying, like, I'm beautiful, I'm going to have a wonderful Christmas. Like, I will have the gas to put in my car. Like, and even if I didn't have the money yet, like, I started using those techniques and I would go wait tables and I was making more. And it's because I like believed it. And I wasn't just sitting there like depressed because I wasn't going to make my rent. I was like, oh, I'm going to make my rent and then I'm going to get a haircut because I'm going to have extra.
You changed your mind. You did it, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it
it's
really did.
powerful.
It is. It is.
What is the saying? If you think you can or you can't, you're right,
Right. Yes.
right? And I've looked at if you look at some of the athletes or that's been really super successful, the difference makers, right? And even probably people in certain other aspects, could be business, could be anything for that matter, right? I think they all had that mindset you just last talked about. There wasn't a doubt. They were just going to do it. That's just I'm going to be.
Right. Yeah, I used that mindset to form this podcast.
And then it forces your actions, right? When you're going to be, then you're like, well, how am I going to be?
Right.
Well, I got to get up. I got to go to wait tables, or I got to dribble more. Got to shoot free throws for 100 a day while everyone else is sitting around. And,
Exactly.
yeah, so.
Yeah, you start saying, okay, well, I have to be this way. What are the steps? Like, how do I get there? And what's the path? Like, people look at me and they're like, well, how are you doing this? Like, how do you make all this art and do the podcast and homeschool your kids? And it's like, because I take the time to think, okay, what is it that I have to do to get to that path? And I don't know if that's the Capricorn in my chart or what, but it's like, I have this great ability to be able to see the steps needed. And I can say, okay, well, I can't take on that right now because I'm doing these other things. It's like I'm super organized. If I wasn't organized, I wouldn't be able to do all this stuff. So I only take on what I can handle, and some things I really want to do. And I just tell myself, well, it's not the right time.
Do you pat yourself on the back, what you do?
Sometimes,
Or do
yeah.
you think what you haven't done? That's another mindset too.
Yes, I am torn between the two. Sometimes I'm really great and optimistic, sometimes I'm not. I feel like the days where I'm beating myself up the most, if I took the time to look at the astrology that was going
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
it's probably something with the moon or, it's like it makes me more emotional. And when I get more emotional, I tend to get more depressed. And then I'm like, oh, everything is the worst.
Yeah, or maybe you think, hey, you know what? I'm appreciate this extra feeling today. I'm
Right.
feeling it, right? Because all feelings are just emotions rolling through us.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it kind of gives you the state of mind you're in, what you're grasping toward,
Right.
right? It's just an emotion. Then we put judgment of why we're feeling that way,
Right.
right? So if I'm like, my heightens, there's times where I've been extra emotional and then my mind will trying to grasp a reasoning why I'm like this, right? So I try to find a soppy feeling or I'm victim mentality or what in this, and then I may cry. Or I could be like, man, okay, this is a heightened emotion. How can I wield it, right? But
Right.
eventually, if I just meditate and didn't do anything, it will pass. Like you
Right.
said, it could be in the moon phase or something
Right.
rolling through. The more you can detach, putting a reason why, because emotions are interesting. I love emotions, but they control us just like the mind does, right? And attaching reasonings, and people go, "You make me feel that way," or no one ever makes you feel a certain way but yourself, right? You take
Right.
an ownership of your own emotions, but yeah, you may analyze the way your thought process the next time a feeling comes up.
Yeah, specifically today, which is weird because I've been on this happy train for a week or two. I've just been feeling like charged up, even though I have had a little anger come up here and there. But today I had this sad thing. Like I woke up and it was gloomy and it started raining and I was like getting ready. And I felt sad, but there was no reason. And instead of trying to analyze it, I was like, I'm just gonna allow myself to feel a little melancholy. Like I'm not going to try to think of sunshine.
I love
It's
that.
raining.
Sit with it.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I was like, oldies, sad songs. And like I went down for breakfast and I was like, I might have just cried while I was getting ready, but I felt better and like by allowing the sadness and like instead of trying to listen to happy music, just listening to something that sort of complemented how I was feeling at the time. Then when I walked out, I was feeling good because I
Maybe.
allowed it
Yeah.
some space, so I didn't have to say, oh, I shouldn't have been sad or beat myself up for feeling sad, but just I'm like, oh, it's raining. I'm gonna listen to sad songs.
Yeah. So, have you a question since you've doing a little practice more that I gave you, trying to build a little fire and things like
Uh-huh.
this, draw it down? How have your emotions been from that? Have you had a little extra little fire, maybe a
I
little spark of anger every now and then? Not to be judging its anger, but it's
I have had anger.
no, no, no. I'll tell you why I love that. That's what when you said anger, and I kind of smiled. I'm like,
It's not repressed right now. It's
no, and that's okay. What it is, right? You're awakening the fire within,
mm-hmm.
the Agni, as they say in
Yeah.
yoga, right? The fire. And
Mm-hmm.
that creates action.
Yes. I'm
And it's okay,
normally
right?
Yeah, I
Right.
normally repress my anger because I've got a
And that
weird.
causes problems in its way.
It does, and then I've had this thing going on in the background lately, and it doesn't directly impact me, but it impacts my family, and these people have been in my business like trying to make these choices and just really controlling and all this, and I've like been speaking up about it. I'm just like calling them
I just
out.
gave the okay sign and smiled at her right
Yeah,
then,
I'm
thumbs
not
up.
just like trying
Yeah.
to be like, oh, I'm just gonna try to forget. I'm like, no, you will not come in here with that, and like I've definitely been feeling my power, and I didn't even think about it, like, because I'm meditating on the flame. I didn't think about that. Maybe that's why I'm so fiery about it.
It's moving stuff that's been lodged and repressed,
Yeah,
right? And moving in and out, and it's beautiful. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah,
That is great. It means it's working right now, right?
right,
Journal a bit of your feelings a little bit, right? And then you're going to
yeah,
get more in touch as you go along through this awakening journey of this, right? And a lot of times people, here's what's interesting, right? So people start doing heavy asana without any kind of meditation work or calming work or even understanding what's going on. They just hop in these classes and
mm-hmm,
then things come up, right? They're doing these twists, laterals, boom, back bends, and all of a sudden energy is trapped all along. They don't understand what's happening or how to control it,
mm-hmm,
right? And that could either spark other problems and they run away and don't want to stick with it or sit with it because we're just people run through a class, they don't really teach what's
mm-hmm,
going on. Or like, one on one, let's express or sit down and satsang in a circle. A lot of times I can do that. Where is everyone sitting right now? What's
mm-hmm,
going on in their womb, right? And you can kind of get a little bit, some balances or whatever something needs to do. And
mm-hmm,
then you can work through these issues because issues will come up. It's your own issue,
mm-hmm,
but it's not a bad thing what's going on astral. So this is beautiful. So this is just the opening of suppressed energy you've had along. And the more you get in touch, I don't want to feel it, then it's okay. Then you
right,
journal that, and the more you meditate, and then you respond to people instead of reacting. You'll be able to have distance for awareness.
mm-hmm.
And I think it's great.
I have like even when I was angry, I did like allow myself some space to process the anger too, instead of just like, you know. And I kept trying to tell myself like I can be compassionate and angry at the same time. So like this anger doesn't make me, like, oh, I'm just apathetic or anything like that. No, like I'm actually being compassionate, but also defending, my family, right? But
Hmm.
it's not because I'm trying to be a bully or be mean. It's just like, no, sometimes this is a truth and it needs to be heard, but instead of just like, I don't know, being cruel with it. I've been like, because you almost want to go there, when someone's like insulting your family, you want to go there.
Go for the throat,
But
right?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't, and I kept saying, well, I need to say what I need to say, and then I need to forgive these people and just move on, versus because there was a point where I was like steaming, and I was like, okay, I could let this keep going,
Yeah.
or I could.
Now, were they intrusive or they said something you took something personally? You
They
analyzed it
were
that. Okay.
intrusive
Okay. That's
and
it.
like
I'm glad you stood up.
manipulating old
Okay.
ladies and
I'm glad you stood up then.
yeah.
That's
Oh, it
great.
had to happen. It had
Yeah.
to happen. And I noticed that as I was like standing up, that the people that were directly involved, they started speaking their truth, where they had for years sort of seen this person doing these things and didn't want to say anything. But now they were like, no, I see you. And like, so we all were roaring at the same time. It was kind of a beautiful thing, like the pack, like you're not going to mess with this pack. Like we take care of each other. So I don't know. It was kind of cool, especially from someone who doesn't usually allow anger out. Like people don't see me as an angry person or a warrior at all, but I'm like, I'm Aries. I can do this. Like I can be fire if I need to. So it's kind of I don't know,
I don't
like,
know if I'd call it anger with you. Maybe you reposition it, right? Anger has a bad word connotative to it, you know? I
mm-hmm.
think you're just in your personal power,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
your confidence and personal power, and by God, Aries going to roar.
right, right. And it's like, because I just knew that I was doing the right thing. I knew that this person was doing something terrible. And I'm like, someone has to call them out. We can't just allow these people to take over
Oh, they'll just
everything.
keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
Over and over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, collectively, like, we've let these people come in, and they're making these choices for us. And they're like, oh, it's for the betterment. And then when you really look at what they have done, you're like, maybe they actually don't care at all about people. Maybe they've been, had their own interests in mind. And so I was going through this on a smaller scale, but as I was going through it, I was like, this is what we've been going through collectively. So maybe I was a little more passionate because of just like feeling that beaten down on me for the past couple of years of like, oh, who are these psychopaths? Like, stop letting these people that don't care about you make choices for you. So I might have been a little overboard because I used all of that energy into this, but it all worked out and everyone's happier and better off for it.
You're
So,
better off overboard and suppressing it, I can tell you that.
oh my God, I've learned that suppressing it is never the way for me. So it comes out in like weird ways when I suppress it. And then,
Here's an idea. The next time you're feeling a little bit, right? You build that the power in you, building
mm-hmm,
it up, right? And you
mm-hmm,
feel like, hey, I'm a little on edge. Try it along little lines pose. Fingers out, right?
okay.
And I would hold like kind of a huge gyro breath, like for about a minute. It's a long hold, but you know what? I think it'll energetically. I think it could possibly soothe that a little bit without,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and if I did it in front of the person, they would definitely be like,
Hey,
leave me
that's
alone.
what I love that. Eyes crossed, fingers out in their face. You know what? Probably what they need. That'd heal them too.
Like, we're not going to mess with her.
Oh, I love
Good.
it.
That's good. All right. Well, we're about to start wrapping it up. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you feel the need to share with our audience?
No, but I would say if there's anything that they'd like for, if I'm even offered to come back ever in the future, talk about anything, what are some topics they'd like to hear from me possibly, or questions they had during this, then we might
Expand on
and
it later.
expand on it a little bit later.
Okay. So I'll see if
Yeah, we might see
anybody.
if anyone says that or said, hey, cut this guy off maybe.
So if you have any questions for Daniel, you can hit me up at the Astral Hour at yahoo.com and I will let him know and we will get them answered for you.
Yes, and you know what? Thank you. And we said a prayer here we thought for the betterment, whatever we talked about today, however it ended up, is to the good of what people needed here today. So
Right.
I'm trusting that.
Yeah, I think it went well.
Thank
So.
you. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you. And thank you all for listening. Check us out next week on the Astral Hour.